Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Confronting Evil. Tonight, Seth and Mackenzie are forced down a road to find something to assist their journey. But what they don't know is something waits for them in return. So, harness in and grab your road snacks. It's time for another exciting episode of Confronting Evil.
Let me out of here!
Cash yelled.
When I get out of here, I'm gonna kick your ass and send you to hell where you belong.
He raged on.
Just you wait till I get my hands on you. I'm gonna...
Cash continued to yell, but was silenced by what sounded like the booming voice of death.
You're going to what?
The voice spoke to him from the darkness of the large cave-like room where he currently found himself ensnared.
I'm going to...
Cash began to protest before thinking twice about it.
Sit right here and be quiet.
He finished, sitting down on his cot, terrified out of his wits. The monstrous voice said, before leaving him alone in the darkness once again. While Cash sat in his cellar prison, above him, his captors plotted what to do next.
I don't know why you'd want a little snot-nosed punk like that.
Ariadne questioned her employer.
He tried to bribe me. Can you believe that? I'm older than his family name. What could a hick that lives in a camper possibly have to offer me?
She balked at the idea.
Need I remind you of your beginnings, Cobrea?
The unearthly voice spoke to her.
Don't ever call me that again.
Ariadne raged, before realizing who she was speaking to and calming herself.
Please.
She added, bowing her head a bit. The thing simply smiled in return. He stayed inside a human form in order to manipulate their vocal cords from the inside and speak like they do, but his body was decaying at a rapid rate from the corruption within, and was starting to no longer resemble a human form, allowing parts of his true self to show through tears in flesh. The skin suit he wore was ripped and began to kind of melt away, slipping loosely from the solidity of the form beneath. He had to find a new body, and quickly.
I have another job for you,
he requested, ignoring her transgression entirely.
You give me what I need, and I'll kill whoever you want.
Ariadne spoke, matter-of-factly.
Oh, not a death, an item, an artifact.
The demon spoke, his one red eye glaring through a rotten hole in a droopy, closed lid. Mackenzie put the pedal to the metal, accelerating through the desert of the western United States, the sound of 80s hair metal screaming through the speakers from the new satellite radio.
Okay, I guess this thing's not all bad.
Mackenzie relented, showing a hint of approval for the new addition to her beauty.
See? No need for the clutter of cassettes or CDs. You can find anything you want, anytime you want.
Seth explained to his sister.
You'll take my cassettes when you pry them from my cold, dead fingers.
Mackenzie growled.
We could lose signal, Seth, especially out here. But this is forever.
She added, holding up a mixtape cassette of her favorite 80s hits.
That one brings back some memories,
Seth said with fond recollection.
You talking about the Mojave vampire nest?
Mackenzie asked.
No. What? You thought it'd be nostalgic about a case.
Seth said.
I was thinking about that one 4th of July with Mom. At the old cabin.
He explained.
Oh, yeah, totally. That was awesome.
Mackenzie agreed.
But that case in the Mojave was pretty cool though, right?
She asked.
Yeah, it was.
Seth concurred.
What was that guy's name?
He then asked.
The overdressed vampire with the powdered wig?
Mackenzie asked.
No, his dog.
Seth quipped.
Yes, the colonial vampire with the periwig.
He added.
BB gun.
Mackenzie replied.
What?
Seth asked, completely confused.
Bartleby gun.
Mackenzie answered.
BB gun.
She added the nickname again.
Yeah,
Seth verified.
that guy. He was out of place, wasn't he?
Seth asked.
Yeah, but so were we. I'd never been so hot in my life. I wasn't built for living in a sauna.
Mackenzie balked.
I wonder what Cash would have thought of that.
Seth said, his demeanor and tone of voice changing to reflect his sorrow.
Oh, shut up, dweeb. You're talking like he's dead. He's not dead. We'll find him.
Mackenzie demanded.
Yeah, I guess.
Seth sighed with uncertainty.
But I bet it would have been something like this.
Mackenzie began before going into her best impression of Cash.
You know, my cousin Darla Jean once dated a guy that looked like a pirate with big hair.
She attempted to ramble on as Cash most likely would have done. Seth chuckled a bit at his sister's jokes, brightening his mood a bit.
Thanks. Ass.
Seth smiled.
No problem, dweeb.
She replied with a bit of a smirk.
So, what is it we're looking for?
Seth asked.
A feather.
Mackenzie replied, as if she were hiding something.
A feather? What?
Seth asked, fearing his sister had finally lost her marbles.
I don't know, some Egyptian feather. The feather of Matt or something?
She said, trying to brush off the question.
The feather of Mott? We're looking for the feather of Mott.
Seth asked in shock.
Yeah. It's supposed to reveal the truth or something. Maybe it can point us to where we need to go.
Mackenzie shrugged as she drove down the road, enjoying one addition that Seth had made to her girl. Air conditioning.
It does reveal the truth, but it is weighed against the hearts of the dead to reveal their sins. I don't think it'll work like some magical compass to show us where Cash is. How did you come across this lead?
Seth interrogated his sister.
I know a guy.
Mackenzie said.
We have the same connections, Kens. We know the same guys. Who was it?
Seth asked further, prompting a mumbled reply from Mackenzie.
What was that?
Seth continued.
Kramer.
Mackenzie said quietly.
What? Kramer? You made a deal with a demon?
Seth growled.
What?
Mackenzie balked.
No, there were no deals. He just did that weird thing where he pops up out of nowhere and then he told me about it.
She answered truthfully.
He just told you. No strings attached? No catch?
Seth asked, not believing what she was saying.
I mean, yeah, I didn't want to believe him either, but Seth, he wants to get rid of Red Eye before this gets any worse, and I figured the enemy and my enemy and all that.
Mackenzie answered, now thinking in hindsight that it probably was a bad idea.
It's a trap.
Seth retorted.
Yeah, Admiral, I got it.
Mackenzie relented.
But we're already on this case, and we shouldn't let something like that remain in the hands of vampires, right?
She reasoned.
Vampires? So that's why you brought up the vampire nest in the Mojave.
Seth sighed, feeling as if he should have known this was coming.
Yeah, Kramer said there would be vampires. Apparently, after we took out old BB gun, some hotshot rolled in and took his place.
Mackenzie explained.
At least the terrain will be somewhat familiar.
Seth grumbled.
Did you find anything?
A familiar voice spoke from the back seat.
Jesus Christ, Blue! Could you not do that?
Mackenzie gasped at the sudden appearance of Blue Eye in the back seat.
Would you rather I run alongside the car and hop in through the door? I couldn't very well do that. Well, I could, but I think it would be kind of weird, don't you?
Blue Eye said, prompting a strange look from both of the twins.
Mackenzie seems to think that the feather of Mott will work as a magic compass and point us to Cash.
Seth took a metaphorical jab at his sister.
I don't see you coming up with any plans.
Mackenzie growled.
What about you, Blue? What did you find?
She then asked the infernal being in the back.
I've searched high and low, but I can't find your friend. I did stop a man from stealing a woman's purse, though.
Blue Eye said with a smile.
Oh, well, that's good.
Seth praised him.
I thought about turning him to dust, but I remembered you saying that was bad, so I just broke his hand instead.
The man with one blue eye said with a smile.
That's better. Not great, but better, I guess.
Seth reasoned.
He made the right move if you ask me.
Mackenzie said, prompting a grin from her blue-eyed friend.
If I remember correctly, this is the place.
Seth said, as Mackenzie pulled into a little diner off the side of the road. The three of them exited the vehicle before going around to the trunk to pull out their weapons of choice. Seth grabbed a silver dagger and a handgun that held their namesake, while Mackenzie grabbed a sawed-off shotgun, a box of silver and holy water buckshot, and a backpack full of wooden and silver stakes.
You guys do know that I'm essentially a walking, talking weapon myself, and I could just, poof.
Blue Eye said, before wiggling his fingers in a downward motion as if to imply the image of dust.
He has a point,
Mackenzie said, looking over at her brother.
Sorry to get your hopes up, but I won't be joining you.
Blue Eye then informed them.
What? Why not?
Mackenzie asked.
I can't. It appears as though these aren't your average vampires. There's magic here. Magic keeping me out. How perplexing.
Blue Eye said inquisitively, confused as to whom could have the power to keep a being of his nature and stature at bay.
So, we'll have to go in without you?
Seth questioned.
I'm afraid so. I'll have a look around out here and see what I can find.
Blue answered before vanishing just as quickly as he had come.
I really hate it when they do that.
Mackenzie grumbled before throwing the backpack over her shoulder and heading for the door to the run-down old diner. Inside, the place was completely covered in dust, aside from a clear trail that led around the counter and into the kitchen in the back before stopping at a large pantry freezer. Behind the freezer doors was a stairwell that led into the ground, down into the darkness.
This is gonna be fun,
Mackenzie said with annoyed enthusiasm.
You brought us here.
Seth retorted matter-of-factly. Mackenzie rolled her eyes, and then down she went, into the depths of the desert, followed thereafter by her brother. The stairs led down for quite some distance before they wrapped around and began descending in the opposite direction before, finally, the smaller tunnel opened up into a wider subterranean cave system, where they found themselves in a massive chamber, plenty of room to be attacked from any angle. The only light within the cave was that of the flashlights that they had brought along and the distant glow of burning fires. Even without the guide of those flames beckoning them in, they knew exactly where they were going. They had been here before, a long time ago, but their destination was hard to miss. A large stone fortification had been built into the cave walls, constructed by some ancient people long ago, their history lost to time. The flames lit within large stone bowls that sat at either side of the entrance to a Geolithic castle. The two of them were just about to enter when they were swarmed by bloodsuckers. 3 bat-faced vamps dropped down from the ceiling of the cave, while 4 more of them ran out from the shadows inside. The new guy in charge had been busy. Mackenzie immediately jumped into action, blowing one of them away with her holy water buckshot. The thing began to burn from the inside with a brilliant light of strange colors before it was left as a husk of frail ash. In doing so, she turned her back to her brother, allowing him to retrieve a few wooden stakes from her backpack, one of which he quickly plunged into the heart of another bloodsucker, burning away the vessel of darkness just like his friend before him. Mackenzie attempted to blast another vamp away, but was interrupted by a bat-faced freak jumping onto her back and trying to take a bite out of her. Seth quickly reacted and drove the silver dagger into the monster's back before ripping the thing off of his sister, where it burst into flames. Using this as a distraction, one of the beasts was able to wrestle the gun away from Mackenzie, where it fell to the dirt of the cave floor. Mackenzie swiftly reached into her bag and pulled out a stake before driving it into the monster's heart. She then followed it up with a second stake plunged through the dead heart of another vamp. One of the last remaining bloodsuckers attempted to bite at Seth, but a silver blade was driven up through the thing's bottom jaw, pinning its mouth shut and burning it from the inside, while Seth's free hand was able to drive a second stake through its chest. The final vampire realized that it had been sorely outmatched and attempted to flee back inside, but was quickly dispatched by a silver stake through the back, where it dropped and writhed around before flames rushed out from every orifice, scorching it away from within. The twins then passed through the gate to find a larger building, all lit up inside with a glow of flickering candles and torches, and also inside several figures could be seen patrolling the building, keeping their new master safe. The duo waited for a shadow to pass by an open window before leaping through to deliver a silver blade to the back of its neck. The vampires knew they were coming, but this didn't stop the twins from getting the jump on one of them. But that was the only lucky break they would be getting, as the screams of hell that escaped from the thing's mouth when it burst into flames alerted the guards that the intruders were now inside the building. Two more guards patrolling the immediate area quickly rounded the corner and charged at Seth and Mackenzie. One of them pounced on top of Seth, knocking him to the ground, where gnashing jaws attempted to take a chunk out of his throat, biting mere inches from his neck as he struggled to hold the creature back. Mackenzie, however, was able to quickly dispatch the charging vampire by driving a stake into its chest before kicking the wooden implement further in for good measure. The thing fell back, knocking its partner off of Seth, where the flames had escaped from its scorched face of the second vampire. The survivor let out a roar of pain and escaped down the hall and around the corner from where it had come. The twins swiftly gave chase, moving around the corner and down along another corridor, dispatching several other vamps that came to stop them along their way. Things were starting to get a bit out of hand for them, but they still managed to hold their own, fighting off every vampire that was thrown at them, yet they still saw no sign of the one that had fled from them after being burned by his dying comrade, that is, until they found themselves in a large room with a desk at the back, a fire burning in the fireplace beside it. The one that had escaped from them had his back to them as he stood before the large wooden desk. He turned to look at them, and for a moment his appearance surprised them. His face was scorched, bloody, and scarred, but he wasn't healing. His face had been partially melted off, and he wasn't healing at all. The vamp then stepped aside to reveal the one sitting at the desk, and the twins knew right away, in that instant, that this was the one responsible for all the new vampires that swarmed the area, picking off tourists that passed through and townsfolk from the little town 12 miles down the road. The man was rather tall and slender. A straight posture stood up from behind the desk. He wore the clothing of an aristocrat that you would see in colonial America. The cream-colored tail jacket and matching trousers, both of them trimmed with gold, with matching golden-colored buttons. His long, silver hair cascaded down over his padded, stately-looking shoulders as he looked down over his nose at the two invaders into his home.
Man, where does a big guy like you get that kind of wardrobe?
Mackenzie joked. The extremely tall man leaned down over his desk, bowing toward them to look them in the eye as he approached. His eyes were a ghostly blue, vastly different from the yellowed or hazel tinge of most vampires.
Leave.
He simply said in a calm, androgynous, almost feminine voice. The two of them did as they were told, turning around and walking out the door from where they had come.
Wait, what the hell just happened?
Mackenzie stopped and asked after making it a short way down the corridor.
He told us to.
Seth began to answer, and then came to the realization of what he was saying. The two of them quickly rushed back into the room to find the two vampires in the process of gathering things to leave, including what appeared to be a pure white, almost glowing feather that the tall vampire hastily tucked into a lockbox before handing it over to his scorch-faced lackey.
Nice try, Goliath. You're gonna have to try harder than that.
Seth quipped.
It did work for a moment, but oh well. I guess I'll have to do this the old-fashioned way. And when I turn you, the elders will have to recognize my superiority.
The tall man said, flashing his snake-like fangs.
You're gonna have to turn us first, Paul Bunyan.
Mackenzie joked, taunting the old vampire.
Maximilian Vanderfeld.
The tall vampire corrected them on his own name.
Whatever, MaxiPad. Are we gonna do this or what?
Mackenzie taunted him further.
You will suffer,
the tall vampire said as he reached out to grab a hold of her face, where he then tossed her aside, throwing her roughly into the wall before proceeding with an unnatural swiftness to her brother, where he bit down hard into his neck, tearing a large chunk of flesh from his throat, where he then held him aloft and let the blood flow, followed by the blood-stained vampire looking back at Mackenzie with a smile. She immediately screamed and ran to her brother's aid. The beast simply dropped his body to the ground and stepped away, where Mackenzie ignored her target and slid to her knees beside her brother.
No, please.
Mackenzie said, tears welling up in her eyes as her brother held onto her, struggling before ultimately slipping away. Mackenzie gasped and started to shake a bit, doing everything she could to hold back the flood of emotions. She thought of the darkness she felt in the void, the emptiness, and then the hope she followed when her brother followed her back. And now, the emptiness swallowed her again. And the vampire was right. She suffered.
Mackenzie!
A voice yelled to her.
Mackenzie, help me out of here!
The voice yelled again. Mackenzie snapped out of her trance and found her brother still very much alive, doing his best to fight off the 10-foot-tall vampire. The tall man kept lunging for him, but somehow he was able to dodge every blow, but he could only hold out for so long. Mackenzie was in a bit of a daze before she realized that this was all a hallucination. This vampire could manipulate their minds just by being close to someone. She then jumped into action to help her brother. She effortlessly pulled a solid silver stake out of the grouping of wooden ones in her backpack, drawing it like an arrow from a quiver in order to drive it through the heart of the colossal vampire. The thing leaned back, his mouth screaming silently as he attempted to claw his way toward the sky, but instead he fell backward, and in doing so, his skeleton ripped from his flesh, the flesh falling into a smoldering pile on the ground as the nearly upright skeleton burst into a brilliant fire of twisting colors. Finally, the sound of 1,000,000 screams from the pits of hell bellowed from the fires within the bones of the beast, before ultimately they exploded in a glory of lights like fireworks, and the thing was no more.
Whoa, that totally beats 4th of July.
Mackenzie said with a smile.
You killed the vampire lord.
The man with the scorched face said in shock. He then dropped the box containing the feather and took off as fast as he could, disappearing into the darkness before either of the twins could do anything to stop him. Mackenzie immediately went and retrieved the feather from the wooden box to find that it had been fastened into an ink quill, and beside it was a glass bottle, corked off, filled with ink.
I don't think...
Mackenzie said, questioning it.
Only one way to find out.
Seth replied, giving her the go-ahead. Mackenzie pulled a menu from a restaurant from back east out of her back pocket for something to write on. She dipped the quill into the ink and opened her mouth to ask it a question.
Be specific. You always want to be specific with these things.
Seth suggested to her. Mackenzie rolled her eyes and then asked the question, specifically.
Where is Sue Cash Bruce?
She said with purpose. The quill danced around in her hand before moving down the page, her fingers being guided by it like a planchette on a Ouija board, but instead of writing down a location, it simply circled a word, the location of the restaurant. Halstead.
Holy shit, it worked.
Mackenzie said in shock.
I mean, of course it worked. It's my plan to come here.
She then said assuredly.
Wow, I was wrong.
Seth admitted with surprise.
Wait, what was that?
Mackenzie questioned.
You were right.
Seth admitted to his sister.
Say it again. One more time.
Mackenzie gloated.
Oh, please. Even if you know where he is, it won't do you any good.
A familiar voice spoke. The two of them looked up to find Ariadne sitting atop the mantel, her legs dangling over the edge of the fireplace.
I'll be taking that.
She then spoke, as the quill was ripped from Mackenzie's hand and floated through the air into Ariadne's grasp.
Where's Cash?
Mackenzie growled.
I think you know.
Ariadne answered with a smile before she vanished once more.
Did you kill the vampire?
Asked the familiar voice of their blue-eyed companion.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Mackenzie jumped, as she was startled by the sudden presence of their friend.
Don't do that!
She grumbled at him.
Magic's keeping me outside of it away, so I came in as soon as I could. We have to go. I can tell that something is very wrong back at your home.
Blue informed them, a look of concern in the arcing of his brow.
That's exactly where we're headed.
Seth replied, as the trio fled the ancient structure to return to the Torino.
Well, seems that Seth and Mackenzie, although may have learned a little bit more, are a little less for it. Will they be up to the challenge of what lies ahead in the final chapters? You won't have to wait long, because Seth and Mackenzie return for the penultimate episode of Season 2 next month.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.